already at the end of the book of Exodus. VaYakhel is the Torah reading that we're looking at this week. VaYakhel is about an assemblage when Moses gathers all the Jewish people, Bnei Israel, around after a pivotal event has occurred. And that pivotal event is the Egel HaZahav that we read at the end of last week's Torah portion. That told the story about how the Jewish people, when Moses climbed the mountain and disappeared for 40 days, how they created a golden calf that they worshipped. They danced around and they pointed to, saying, "This is your God, O Israel." It was a terrifying, terrible moment, perhaps better forgotten, but for reasons and purposes that God knows and that we are beginning to understand, could never be utterly erased from the consciousness of the people. Because the day that Moses came down from the mountain was the day that he smashed the tablets that were given to him by God, and having ascended the mountain again, he asked for God's forgiveness, and the day on which the forgiveness was granted was Yom Kippur. So in that sense, today's Torah reading begins on the day after Yom Kippur, the day after the Day of Atonement, the day after the ultimate forgiveness, when God had said, although you've done terrible, you've done something wrong, despicable, I forgive you. And the covenant continues from that moment and stretching all the way to our time and passing through the pages of eternity. That Moses chooses the day after Yom Kippur to assemble the people is marked, is important. It's important because Moses wants to tell the people something powerful and important, and in their consciousness must be the idea that God has forgiven them from their treacherousness, from their sin of the golden calf. So they're ready to hear, they're ready to listen, they're ready to be contrite. How many times has it been in your life that you've met other people? There's a meeting that's arranged, there's a conversation that begins with a whole lot of people, and during the course of that meeting, that conversation, people begin to stake claims, begin to put up borders, begin to say things that they would not say if they were in a smaller crowd, because the ego gets the better of them. They open their mouth and they fight, they defy, they challenge, and again they utter things that are regrettable, that should never have been uttered. Do you know what the Talmud says about the first and second temples? They were destroyed because of humanity's inhumanity, because of what is called sinat chinam, baseless hatred. What is baseless hatred? It's when people get together and they shoot off. They shoot from the hip. They fire with their mouth, saying things that are offensive and hurtful to other people. And it happens. It happens when people gather together, that people do say things that upon a moment's reflection they would never say. Now coming back to this Torah reading, that's why Moses assembles the people on the day after Yom Kippur. And he says, La'asot otam, at the end of the very first pasuk, this is your responsibility, to meet out, to do this. That we're meeting here as a people, but the ultimate response to everything is an acceptance of God's will. There is no sinat chinam here. There can be no argumentation. There can be no words of regret that would be uttered, because on the day after Yom Kippur, those words would be banished from the mind. And even more importantly, Moses stating at the outset, it is God's will that needs to get done, not your own. This is VaYakhel. This is the Torah reading. This is the power, its majesty, and the import of which is not lost whenever more than one person gathers. Shabbat Shalom.